Hello, this is Trevor, and today we're doing another cross-site scripting vulnerability in PortSwigger's Web Security Academy. This time it is a DOM XSS in the document.write sync using source location search inside a select element. Stock checker functionality uses the JavaScript document.write function, which writes out data to the page. Location search, where you can control using the website URL. The data is enclosed within a select element. To solve this lab, perform cross-site scripting attack that breaks out of the select element and calls the alert function. All right, well, that sounds good. Remember, document write, that's the sync. Location dot search is the source and will be inside a select element, which we need to break out of and then call the alert, which we need to break out of and then call the alert function. All right. Please remember to like and subscribe. Let me know how I'm doing in the comments. This was location search inside a select in the stock checker functionality. So let's view details. Oh, look, we're on a shop. Sweet. We can go back to using our shop site. London in the chart. Interesting. So it's got to be, this is the checks stock. Input script. This looks promising. Product ID. So we got stores, which is an array. New URL window.location.search. Get store ID. Document write. Select name equals store ID. If store. So here's our document write. Here's another document write. Interesting. And here's a third. Oh, because we have the writing the start select, writing the end select, and then each option within that. And let's see. URL search params window.location.search. So store equals new window location to search. Document write. So we may be writing here. Oh, and this is concatenating here. If store as the option. Stores I. Window location search. So isn't that going to be like window.location.search? All right. That's this whole statement right here. URL search params dot get. So it's getting the store ID. So what if we added an ampersand store ID equals blah. Let's do that first. And then window.location.search. And then we are going to go back to wherever that script was. It is where? Probably at the bottom. Where is that script? Just stock check payload. Form Here it is, sorry. Get. So let's try this. Get store ID. Window location. Okay, so let's store this as let's do const a equals window dot location dot search, and we'll do it just like it has in the script. New URL search params with this and this. Okay, so now we want a.get store ID blah. Perfect. So now that we have the store ID, it is going to put it here if store var store equals. So that's going to be stored as the variable store. Name equals store ID. I don't know where this store ID is coming from, but if the store, we're going to write it right here within, concatenate it within the option string. So what I think we can do is I think we can do this. Let's try script. We'll do console.log blah, just so we don't accidentally solve it if we have it correct. Hey, look at that. Sweet. So this is going to be our payload. We just need to add it on a store ID with our payload as the store ID, and then we need to visit this product page with that. Remember, this is a shop and not a blog this time. All right, well, let's write it out. We need to know the lab name, which is document.write sync inside select element. document write sync inside select element .py. Let's pull up our template, which we actually have open already. Copy that to here. Let's close out blog. We don't need that. Let's close out the template. Let's close out this one. So we're going to change word to shop and do the same here and do the same here. So shop equals shop. Now, we need to get the product ID. Let's check how we did that in utils shop. We don't have a get product. All right, so what's the URL structure look like? Let's add this product equals product ID. Copy. I don't want the one. So I want to add this as either an attribute or a method to that shop. And that's either going to be let's write it as a method called like get product. This will be what the URL, and then we'll accept the product ID as an argument to that method, and that's where we will provide our payload. Does that sound good or what? So to implement that, we're going to do def get product self product ID. Now I know I'm writing it as if we're using the functionality normally. That will work fine, won't it? Uh-oh, it may not. No, I don't think it will. And the reason why is because I think that this ampersand, if we provide one ampersand, it's going to URL encode this, and we don't want this URL encoded because we want it to be viewed as an, literal ampersand, because it is part of the parameters for the URL. Everything after this can be URL encoded, but we definitely want this to not be URL encoded. So scratch that whole plan. We'll just add self.product URL equals self.base URL plus, and then again, I will copy this and paste it there. Looks good to me. Actually, man, I'm all over the place. We're not going to use this. I think it's a good addition to the class, but I want to do this a different way in the code. My bad. I'm all over the place. So the reason I want to do that is I want to create a dictionary named params. The first entry in the dictionary item, or dictionary, first key in the dictionary is going to be product ID. And this can be, for our purposes, this can be anything. We'll just leave it as one. The second param is going to be store ID. And for this one, we want to put our payload. So let's just write that on a separate line. Payload equals, and we'll copy this. We'll leave it as is for the first test with the console.log. We won't be able to see that, so it'll be a terrible test. What can I do? We'll come back to it. Now I need response. I don't need the response. I can do shop.getResponse. Remember, that's a method in our site class. GetResponse at the top here. It just needs a URL. Nope, we can't use self-GetResponse either because we have the param. So shop, without changing it, shop, we want to requests.get. We want the URL, which will be shop.base URL plus the first part of this, which is product. So that's going to be the URL. We want params equals params. This will format the parameters correctly and include them in the URL. And if args dot no proxy. We're going to do that. I don't think we need anything else. I'm going to do our proxies and then verify. So proxies equals utils dot proxies and verify equals false. Shop dot is solved. It's not going to solve it until we switch this to alert. Let's save this response. Response equals. And while we won't be able to tell if the JavaScript is working, we'll be able to see it in the response. So print resp.text, and I'm going to comment that out. So I'm going to run this Python DOM document.write sync inside select element here home. All right, we should get printed the response. We don't have a log. You know that bothers me. So I'm going to do it right here, log.info, getting product description with payload. That's fine. In this, we are looking for, and again, we're not going to see it because it is DOM based, so it doesn't actually get written to the page until this JavaScript gets executed. So this test was literally pointless. I'm doing so well on this one. We're just going to send it and assume it works. I'm changing these to underscore because I don't want the errors. And then I'm going to change this instead of console.log. I'm going to do the alert. Shop is solved. So I believe this will work. And we weren't able to prove it with our script or test out the final. I mean, we can. Can we? I don't think so. Let's just run it. See how we did. Get product description with payload. This is taking way too long. What is the deal here? That should not be so delayed. Proxy, store ID. I mean, that looks right. And is our site just... The response just never came back. All right, well, let's kill this and send it again. Ah, sweet. All right, so we did get it solved. Just to walk through the code again, we created a shop this time instead of a blog. We got the product description. We used a thing in request that allows us to tell it the parameters of the URL. So we had two options, basically. We could have written out the URL exactly, just like this, and then provided requests with just that URL. Or we could have done it like this, using params dictionary and let requests put the question mark and the ampersand where it needed to and order these items correctly. That's what I chose to do, but either way would have been fine. We did build the URL, put our payload in. Our payload just ended the option in that drop-down box and then added the script tags around our alert. Not posted that. We did a get with that when the JavaScript that was written on the page found our store ID. Right here, the store ID with our payload. It found that right here and stored it into a variable called store. It then wrote right here if the store exists. So if that was a parameter as part of the URL, it wrote out option selected and then concatenated our payload to that HTML string in the document.write. Of course, this is dangerous because we can write any HTML we want. In this case, we wrote script tags along with JavaScript inside, which got concatenated, and then boom, everything else functioned. That's it. If you have any questions, let's make sure we see the congratulations, you solved it. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Goodbye.